I know exactly what you're going to say.
Horse.
No, I'm not making another MLP video.
Horse.
I said no already.
Horse.
Mary, stop it.
Horse!
You are very persuasive.
Horse.
It's been well over a year since I made anything My Little Pony related on my channel. I didn't fall out the saddle or anything. I am still, and always will be, a fan of My Little Pony, but I really wasn't sure what to say about Generation 5 that hasn't already been said. Why is Spike on all fours? And any time I made an attempt to sit down and try to be more articulate when conveying my thoughts on Generation 5, it just resulted in a noise similar to this ringing around in my brain. I made 3 videos about G5 a year or so ago, and I recommend you go watch those before you watch this. But since I posted those, I've had very little to say on it. Even now, after season 6 of Make Your Mark has been released, I really don't know what more I can say. I still feel like this clip from Basil the Great Mouse Detective sums up how I feel about this generation perfectly. Okay, it's time to rip the band-aid off and get to it. In my opinion, My Little Pony Generation 5 lacks the depth, sophistication, and charm that Generation 4 had, and suffers from, as Dr. Wolf put it, simply not knowing what it wants to be, or who the main character even is. The movie has Sunny as the main character, whereas in the Netflix series, the focus seems to shift more on Zip, and it bounces around between the two. And as I've said in other videos, Zip seems to be the only character in the Netflix series that cares about the plot and is paying any attention to it.
How can you even think about Portrait Day when the mystery of that warning from Twilight Sparkle is still waiting to be solved? Who was this evil force she was trying to warn us about? How did she build protection around Equestria? She said we were in danger, Pip.
She is asking all the right questions, whereas the other characters are asking questions like this.
What are you growing over there? Grapefruits? Zucchini. It's a grape-kini. What are we looking at?
Where did I put that hydrating face mask?
Now, where did I leave my suitcase full of glitter?
Since Zip is the only one who seems to have any kind of concern about the danger that Twilight warned them about, she's understandably alone in her investigation. This feeling of being alone is emphasized even more in the episode Portrait of a Princess. The episode brought some much needed conflict into the series. Zip being so preoccupied, understandably so, with figuring out what Twilight's message meant, where meanwhile Pip is too distracted with keeping up appearances and posting things on social media to even care about what's actually going on, or what her sister is even talking about.
I have thousands of followers on multiple platforms validating my every move.
Let me take a selfie.
Pretty sure you're just recycling old jokes from previous videos.
In my defense, these videos take a long time to make. They take a lot of hard work, perseverance, and hard work.
You said hard work twice.
That's because it takes twice as much hard work as perseverance.
Did you watch Chicken Run recently?
Maybe. All joking aside though, out of all of the episodes of this entire generation, this is probably my favourite episode. My own sister in real life sadly passed away in the year 2020, so whenever I see these two characters together, the way that Zip behaves around Pip reminds me of how me and my sister behaved together. It was kind of a comfort, especially when they sung the song together.
As it all comes clear to me, you're my best friend, my family. I wanna capture this moment as we hit our stride.
It was one of the very few sincere and genuinely moving moments throughout the entire show. It makes me wish that Zip and Pip were the two leads for this generation. Why wasn't she the main character of this generation again? Please tell me, because this is an absolute mystery to me. I mean, she's the only one that's paying attention to the plot. She's a princess, so that continues the tradition of having the main character in an MLP related thing a princess. And she's the only character that Opaline seems to be intimidated by.
Be extra careful with the older one. She's far too curious for my liking.
Not to mention, if we had Zip and Pip be the lead characters in G5, it would be a nice continuation of having sisters be a main theme of My Little Pony. After all, G4 is founded on a story of two sisters, Celestia and Luna.
Okay, technically they weren't the main characters, but they were the ones that the lore of G4 are founded on, and will allow the show to imbue conflict into the series that feels more natural. Since G5 is set in the same universe as G4, based on the same lore, to me, having two sisters as the leads in G5 would echo this, allowing both characters to test their power, establish their differences, and of course vent their emotions.
Paralleling what happened between Celestia and Luna whenever Zip and Pip have an argument. You won't have the same power struggle between the two, since these are two Pegasi, not alicorns, which brings up a whole set of new questions as to what exactly qualifies you to be a princess in this world now, especially when Sunny herself, who is an alicorn, declares that she is not a princess.
Spike, be careful.
Don't worry about me, Princess Sunny.
I'm not a princess.
If you say so.
Kinda awkward for Spike to call Sunny a princess when Zip and Pip are standing right there. In my opinion, we see more of an emotional range from Zip and Pip than any other character in the movie or the series,
with Misty being a possible exception. It's something I personally feel is very lacking in G5. I really don't feel emotionally connected to anything in this series other than these two characters. At least not a strong emotional bond anyway. Not as strong as I remember having with characters in G4. The missed potential here of having Zip be the main character of this generation is insane. That's not to say that Sunny is a bad character or anything, absolutely not. But in the Netflix series, even after they receive the message from Twilight Sparkle, she doesn't seem to have any urgency or ambition behind her to learn more about the message.
which is so out of character to me considering how she was in the movie and how her dad encourages her to learn more about Twilight Sparkle and the rest of the main six from Generation 4. It just seems like, oh, we have a message about a big bad evil villain, but no, let's just learn about how to make our smoothies taste better.
I have a really important announcement, one that will change all of our lives. Homies of Maritime Bay, I have some alarming news. We eat too much junk food.
What?
Why constantly eat junk food when we have Earth Pony powers we could be using to create fresh fruits and veggies of our own? Imagine the possibilities.
Even when Zip was trying to tell her that there was something wrong with the crystals, Sunny dismissed it like it was nothing.
I have a confession. I've been monitoring the crystals, and I think something is wrong with them.
What? No, there isn't. Magic is not glitching.
But you said it yourself. Your alicorn magic keeps appearing randomly. You don't find that strange?
No, I think that's just because I'm still learning.
Yeah, and you know the other thing you should be learning how to do? Be a main character in Generation 5, because Zip is taking over at this point.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
When the villain of the series is more intimidated by a supporting character instead of the main character, but yet still emphasizes her hatred for Sunny more than any other character, it results in the writing feeling incredibly disjointed. Because if the villain doesn't know who to focus on and be most intimidated by, the audience is going to feel like they're either being left behind or feeling like the character who's supposed to be the main character isn't even interested in what is going on within their world. So why should we care? Even Opaline finds Sunny's naivety utterly ridiculous. Her ambition focused on making a community garden instead of keeping Equestria safe.
How do I stay an alicorn?
Find the source of your power and harness it. Then all your wildest dreams can come true!
Even the community garden?
That's your wildest dream? We'll work on that. Go take what's rightfully yours.
Thank you so much. Me? Mirror me? Sunny squared? I'll come up with a better name soon.
Memo to me. Memo to me. Maim you after my meeting.
It just feels like the Sunny that we got in the G5 movie has dropped several IQ points in this series. At the end of the movie, Sunny is granted, is that the right word? Granted alicorn powers that are only temporary instead of permanent like they are with Twilight Sparkle. But I feel like this is never explored in the series. If anything, it feels like it's being avoided. We have one episode where Sunny is learning how to control her alicorn powers, and instead of that being the focus is more on how her alicorn powers have made her a celebrity and she's trying to escape the attention. People are only listening to what she has to say because she suddenly has alicorn powers. I really wish this was explored more. The possibility of her alicorn magic glitching because of how insecure she is and having that be why there's something wrong with the crystals would have been really interesting to explore. I mean, she declares in season 6 that they are the guardians of the crystals.
See, there were these crystals.
The Unity crystals?
You know them?
Know them? We are the keepers of the crystals!
If you're the guardians of the crystals, why did you show no concern when Zip told you there was something wrong with them? Sunny is not a bad character. She just hasn't been given the attention she deserves within her own series. And it ends up that we feel more interested in what's happening with Zip and Misty, both characters who have been given more development and attention than any other character in the show, or are at least to me more interesting and memorable, with the exception of Izzy Moonbow, but we have an entire video devoted to her coming after this one. Sunny herself says she's still learning how these alicorn powers work. What would be really nice if we spent some time with Sunny during her character arc and development in the show, developing her powers. The villain of the series is an overpowered alicorn, and the main character is an Earthboner who has been granted alicorn powers that only seem to pop up when she absolutely desperately needs them to happen, or when she's helping other characters discover their own potential. It just feels like Sunny's alicorn powers are used as a deus ex machina to defeat the villain or overcome said problem of an episode, but there seems like there's no connection between her character development and character arc with her development of her powers, which to me kinda defeats the purpose of her having alicorn powers in the first place. Her alicorn powers are meant to represent unity between Earth Pony, Pegasi, and Unicorn.
Being an alicorn doesn't make you different. It makes you the same.
It does?
You're every pony all in one.
Okay, you could put this down to Sunny having insecurities about her sudden alicorn powers, but this was never made clear. It just felt like the show was just avoiding this whole thing to focus more on Zip, because yet again, she's the only one that's showing any concern about the message that Twilight left for them all. You know what I feel like right now? You know when your shoelaces are tied up in a knot and you can't get them undone? That's how I feel whenever I talk about G5. Pip is too busy taking selfies and trying to keep up her popularity on social media, and Izzy sadly doesn't seem to be absorbing what's going on no matter where she is.
Who would do something like this?
Her name is Opaline, and she's...
Oh, Opaline! You know, I was really racking my mind, like, who really would do something like this? Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Continue.
Izzy, who else did you think would do this?
I've always been a little suspicious of Hitch's crab friend, McSnips a lot. He's just so pinchy. And this piece makes no sense.
And Hitch is just along for the ride and the one to carry Sparky around. Sparky, by the way, basically being the walking, noise-making MacGuffin of Generation 5. I mean, you could have had Sparky be a descendant of Spike. That would have been interesting. Oh, let's circle back to Spike, shall we?
Behold, our exalted leader of dragons, Dragon Lord Spike!
Sorry, Amber, but the writers seem to have completely forgotten about your entire existence. Nah, Spike never made you the Dragon Lord in G4 or anything. The dragons didn't already have their own princess or anything. No, we're gonna bring back Spike into G5. Gotta keep milking that nostalgic car for all it's worth, right?
Spike? We are honored to meet such a legend as the Spike! I am a big fan.
Why is Spike on all fours? So every generation of My Little Pony has their own version of Spike, apart from Generation 2, obviously. Generation 5 seems to be the very first time we actually have the same so-called Spike from a previous generation. And yeah, there's a lot of continuity and consistency issues with the connection between G4 and G5 here. And this is made even more confusing with the appearance of Spike. And the design of the dragons, they just look like bigger versions of the ponies with scales and pointy teeth. Why are they on all fours again? Even Sparky isn't on all fours. This design choice makes no sense and just feels incredibly lazy to me.
Though a friend did recently point out to me that this was probably done so that the dragons had the same animation rig as the ponies do.
Which does make sense from a cost-effective standpoint, but from a creative standpoint, it just comes off as lazy.
If Spike from Generation 4 was going to appear in Generation 5, where the story is set several hundreds of years, I assume, after the events of Generation 4, surely we should have got some vital gaps filled in by Spike. But no, he conveniently doesn't remember a lot of what happened because of some kind of hibernation process that the dragons have to do.
Come inside. I have a lot to tell you, ponies.
Yes, you sure do have lots of holes to fill in here.
Spike was there with Twilight when Opaline got banished.
It all feels so foggy, like a dream.
So here's why this scene is so awkward to me. Not only do we have to have Sunny and Zip explain to Spike what has happened during the time he's been asleep, but Spike has to also explain to them what he remembers from what happened when Opaline was first banished. And sadly, Spike barely remembers what happened and is trying his best to put together what he remembers while also absorbing what the characters are telling him has happened since then. Okay, so I do think it's incredibly unfair to assume that Spike is going to be used to be the character that fills in all the gaps of the events that happened between G4 and G5. But I have to ask, what was the point of even bringing Spike back in the first place if he wasn't going to do just that? I really hate having to say this, but if Spike was meant to be used as the writer's convenience to fill in the gaps of the events between G4 and G5, they didn't even do that with him. So what was the point of bringing him back in the first place? Spike doesn't really do anything for the rest of the series. He's literally imprisoned later on and is frozen in place, and it's Sparky that sets him free. In my personal opinion, this does feel like the writers were just relying on nostalgia by bringing Spike back, instead of actually using him to his full potential to help fix the frankly confusing and frustrating writing. It's like Zip, yet another case of wasted potential.
Twilight knew she had to protect magic from her somehow. Her plan saved us all. She helped us work together against darkness. See, there were these crystals.
We are the keepers of the crystals!
What is the real story of the crystals and Opaline? Who is she really?
She's dangerous. She's the reason I had to part ways with my friends. She wanted magic. She wanted to rule all ponies. She thought that alicorns were superior. The crystals were created to hide the magic of Equestria in them. All of pony magic and all of dragon magic inside the Dragonstone.
The spell was damaged when we brought magic back, when the three pony kinds reunited again after centuries.
You lost magic? All by yourselves? Oh, I'm going back to sleep.
Why are you surprised that they lost magic? You just said that all of pony magic were sealed inside the crystals. What you should be surprised by is that they managed to get the magic back, but also at the same time broke the spell, keeping Equestria hidden from Opaline. This is what you should be surprised and worried about, Spike. I mean, it's the whole reason the ponies are here in the first place. Do you see what I mean about the writing being really inconsistent and confusing in this show? It can't even follow its own logic,
as flimsy as it is. Though I do personally feel that this entire scene with Spike and the rest of the dragons, as well as the main pony characters, feels really dialogue heavy and was just a slog to sit through listening to all of this.
We did have a little bit of a visual change, at least, when Spike tries to explain what happened with Opaline back in the day, but I don't know, I just feel like there should have been some kind of actual literal animation showing what happened and showing the expressions of the characters, including himself and the other dragons, and maybe even showing all of the main 6 from G4 fighting against Opaline the first time they had to defeat her. Having his memory be fuzzy just felt like an excuse to just not go this far with it. Opaline at one point in the show does say that that she was rejected by Celestia and Luna to be friends with him or something like that. And we see the three of them together in their 3D models. So why couldn't we have a flashback like this from Spike? During Spike's retelling of what happened in the past with Opaline, Celestia and Luna aren't even in this story at all. But quite possibly the most wasted potential in G5 is with its villain. Having an Alicorn villain in MLP is something I've said before I found really interesting.
I think the closest thing we came to in G4 with having an Alicorn villain is with Nightmare Moon at the start and with Cozy Glow. In fact, for a while I remember there being a fan theory that Opaline was the Nightmare version of Cozy Glow. And there was also another fan theory that Opaline was the Nightmare version of Princess Flurry Heart, or as I like to call her, Princess Facehugger.
You know, Twilight Sparkle's niece, who was born an Alicorn, something that even the Alicorns in G4 had never seen before. And if we're going to have G4 and G5 be tied together, I feel like the best way to do so is with the villain. And though yes, we know that Opaline existed during Twilight Sparkle's reign, we also see that Opaline knew Celestia and Luna when they were children. So that kind of killed any fan theory of her being either Flurry Heart or Cozy Glow. I'm not a theorist, but even I think those two theories work so much better than just having Opaline be an Alicorn that just showed up randomly one day to say Alicorns are the superior race. I'm going to take over Equestria, Twilight Sparkle, and there's nothing you can do about it. So Twilight Sparkle locks all the magic away and then cast a spell to hide Equestria from Opaline entirely. My question would be, why did you hide Equestria from Opaline? Wouldn't it have made more sense to hide Opaline away from Equestria? If you were able to hide an entire kingdom, surely you would have been able to hide Opaline's castle. Or even cast her into Tartarus, or, you know, turn her to stone. Those two things are punishments that Twilight carried out on previous villains, including Cozy Glow, who is a young child. But then again, My Little Pony does have this message of be friends or else kind of thing. Opaline is a malicious and deceitful, self-centered character,
believing she is entitled to rule over all pony kind, and considers Sunny an absolute disgrace to Alicorn kind for not thinking the same thing as her, that Alicorns are superior. Opaline is very condescending and incredibly petty, especially when it comes to how she treats Misty.
So nice of you to come home, Misty. I thought you got lost, like the time I rescued you as a filly. So kind of me to do that.
Though in the Tell Your Tale YouTube series, there's much more of a comedic side to Opaline, which I do very much enjoy. If there's one thing that G5 has that is better than G4 is that it has a villain that isn't reformed or defeated in just a couple of episodes. She is the villain through all 6 seasons of G5. As someone who considers villains to be the most enjoyable part of any kind of media, especially when it comes to animated media, I do feel like out of everything in G5, Opaline suffered from wasted potential the most.
Opaline as a villain feels like a retread of cliche villains we've seen in other media, like Mother Gothel or Frollo, power hungry and motivated by past discrepancies that are never explored, meaning we can't really relate to her in any capacity or understand what her motivation is other than the fact she wants to be powerful and rule over everything. Having Opaline sing a song with the lines "I'm a villain" in it doesn't automatically make her actions or motives important to the plot all of a sudden. You might as well literally have her grow a mustache and twirl it. If this song was meant to be taunting the hero, she's singing it to the wrong character. A character that we've only known for a few minutes. Villain songs in any media are usually the things that I enjoy the most,
which is painfully ironic considering my favorite character ever who is a villain doesn't even have a villain song, unless you count the song he sings in the TV series, but I don't think anyone counts that one. Opaline's song is not only being sung to the wrong person, doesn't really reveal anything more about her character or her plot, other than she's just singing about being the villain. It reminds me of the song Queen of Mean from the Trolls in Central Park movie. And in my personal opinion, when anything reminds you of that movie's existence, you know you have a huge problem on your hands. You know, there's actually a lot of songs that villains sing in movies that are basically singing about how evil they are. And they can be fun, but they also need to have a purpose. And Opaline's song doesn't have a purpose, to me. Even Tempest's song in the My Little Pony Generation 4 movie had a purpose. It was to reveal her backstory and why she was the way she was. It made the audience feel sympathetic toward her. Opaline is such a one-note villain that she's just not interesting at all. I mean, she can be a lot of fun, especially in the Tell Your Tale YouTube series. Oh, please God, someone take away my editing privileges.
I'm Sunny, and I think that every pony should have magic. I have so many friends.
Lord help me, what? You need it on the bridge, sir. Knock on my door! Knock next time! Yes, sir. Did you see anything? No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good!
But there's just not much more to her. And since villains are the ones that move the plot along in any story, that is a big problem. And probably the biggest problem that Generation 5 has. I mean, she could have sung this song to Misty, for instance. That would have been perfect. Or Sunny. But no, she's singing it to a character that she doesn't even know, and we don't even know either. So where's the intimidation here?
I'm a villain.
Oh, she's a villain, alright, just not a super one. Because you know what it takes to be a super villain?
Presentation!
But that and a personality other than, you know.
I'm a villain!
The point of a villain is to oppose the hero, but to me, that alone should not make up the personality of said villain. There needs to be more to the character than just that. A villain who is evil just for the sake of being evil is incredibly boring. A villain's motivations highlight the theme of a story. What makes a villain scary is knowing their reason behind what they're doing and having inarguable logic. When a villain is given a reason to want what they want, they become more powerful and scarier. Opaline is not scary.
Oh, I'm so scary.
Oh, you can keep saying that all you want, Opaline, but you are not scary at all, or intimidating. Not one bit. You're cruel to Misty for sure, and yeah, to the point of being evil. And luckily for Misty, she built up the courage to actually stand up to Opaline in the final episodes, and even has some empathy toward her. When Opaline forces the dragons to work for her, she refers to them as her friends. Misty points out that those aren't her friends, she's forcing people to do her bidding. That's not friendship, that's control.
I won't let you do this to me, or my friends.
I thought we were friends.
No, it's so sad. You've got all the power in Equestria, and you still haven't ever felt true friendship.
I have friends.
You have to force others to pretend to be your friends. That's control. You were by yourself for so many moons, all alone. I actually feel really sorry for you.
Insert painfully obvious Harry Potter and Voldemort reference here.
You're the weak one, and you'll never know love or friendship, and I feel sorry for you.
How Opaline was finally defeated in this show was genuinely chilling and terrifying to me. She is encased inside of a living tree for eternity. She was still alive when she was encased in that thing, so I know this isn't really a new thing for MLP to force villains to be encased and imprisoned in things forever, like turn into statues for instance, but being stuck inside a living tree for eternity? That is terrifying to me. Kind of reminds me of Hexus from Fern Gully a little bit. So wait a second, if Opaline is stuck inside the tree, does that make her part of the tree? Does that mean she is becoming a tree? Because if so, I'm pretty sure Fluttershy would be jealous of that.
I'd like to be a tree.
Oh, for Pete's sake!
Look, I know this show is meant for children. That should never be used as an excuse for crappy writing. Oh, it's just for kids. Kids don't care. Well, yeah, they probably don't care, but that's not the point. Verity herself said in Generation 4 that children, just like adults, deserve her best quality work.
Just because the attendees are young doesn't mean they don't deserve my very best creative work.
Are you listening, Hasbro? The quality of the writing felt like a huge downgrade, relying on predictable tropes, dialogue-heavy expositional dumps, instead of relying on the visual medium to tell a story. It was a chore to watch, and I honestly didn't want to talk about it as it was so disappointing, and I hate feeling this way about My Little Pony, because it's one of my favourite franchises and the vehicle that made my channel successful in the first place. I want to be sure that the content I make on my channel is something I genuinely want to make and enjoy making, and make it entertaining for you guys to watch. And if I'm just talking about how bad something is all the time, that's not exactly fun to make or watch. So this is why I haven't really talked about Generation 5 much at all. I'm Mad Munchkin, stay creative.